Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. You want to die like an Egyptian? You want to have a dad bod and big man boobs, just like they had in ancient Egypt? Well then, eat like an Egyptian did. Lots of whole wheat grain, stone ground grain, because that was the basis of the whole Egyptian diet. We can tell from the records that if you were a soldier back then, you got 2.5 pounds of grain every single day. That's what they fed them. The basics, and it looks, this is a diet that the American Heart Association would say would be a heart-healthy diet when you really look at it. I mean, what did they eat? They ate mostly grain, whole wheat grain, non-GMO grain, stone ground, minimal processing, a little bit of oil in there mixed in with the grain. They ate some fish from the Nile River, and they ate fowl. They didn't eat their cows. They used those for growing wheat. They didn't eat pig either. They actually used that to trample the grains into the ground. So what they were eating was exactly what our government tells us that we ought to eat. And frankly, what was the result? Well, what's interesting about the Egyptians is we have a really good record of it. Almost every other civilization on the face of the world, we only know, what they ate based on what their skulls look like and their bones, and we can take a look at their teeth and stuff like that, the hard tissues that survive. But with the Egyptians, because of their religion, everybody that had more than a couple of bucks was mummified. Unless you were really poor and unless you were a slave, you got mummified because that was the only way you could go into the afterlife. And there's actually more mummies in existence today than there are Egyptians alive. So we've got this great record of that whole point of civilization when everybody was eating wheat. And we can take a look at their heart health, and it's not good. In 2011, Smithsonian Magazine did a very interesting article where they did an MRI scan of one of the princesses that died in her 40s. She died of a heart attack. 3 of her arteries to her heart were blocked. She would have been a bypass patient at 40, except they didn't have bypasses back then. And some people have speculated, well, she was a princess, so therefore she had to have a better diet, without any evidence at all. There's no evidence to suggest that she was ate any different than anybody else at the time. And when we look at other ones, people that were not royalty, we see the same problem. Now, we often think that all the Egyptians were tall and skinny. Well, those were idealized pictures that they put on paintings. Kind of like, if you tried to figure out what people look like in the United States today by looking at the cover of Cosmo, you'd get a very different idea of what reality is on the beach on any given Saturday afternoon. You got an idealized version versus what the reality is. When you look at the statuary, though, and you look at what people actually look like according to their artist, all the guys had pooches and man boobs. The women were poochy too. And then we look at the mummies and we realize they all had bad hearts, horrible teeth. In other words, eating a wheat-based diet, that heart-healthy, whole grain diet, is not good for you. And we've got a lot of archaeological evidence that shows that that's the case. Dr. Michael Leeds, and I'll link to one of his videos below, does a great job of explaining all the archaeological evidence that keeps showing that there's a vast difference in the health between people that ate meat and people that didn't. And the best example of that really is the Egyptian culture. So you can die like an Egyptian, and you can eat all that great stone ground wheat, and you can think of yourself as being healthy, but you're going to end up dying like an Egyptian, which is probably of a premature heart attack. See, the diseases of modernity were rampant several thousand years ago in ancient Egypt. You don't have to. That's one of the reasons why I went keto and started dropping the amount of carbs, and I got rid of the wheat out of my diet because, frankly, I don't want to die like an Egyptian. I hope you don't either. This is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. If you like this message, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps get this message out to more people, and frankly, it helps us, to get hopefully future guests and make this channel more widely available. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I'll talk to you tomorrow.